Smiley Face Part 2. In the Bulgova car park after praying, Aslan felt a total sense of peace. He considered himself the luckiest man in Turkey to have been chosen for such a historical event. He was even more content when all of his men stood in line and saluted him. Then one by one they marched up to him and shook his hand. It was the proudest moment in his life. The chant echoed around the concrete walls. Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Then there was total silence as Aslan got into the microlight. He was a qualified pilot with 10,000 hours in the air, including on military fixed-wing and helicopters. He knew he could fly it, but he just hoped he would make it all the way to his target. His radio hissed as he strapped himself in, so he fully turned up the volume. Then, taking a piece of chalk, he turned to face the artillery shell like he had seen the Americans do in World War II movies. He wrote the name of his son Mehmet onto the green paint. Mehmet, at 22, had been martyred in Chechnya fighting the Russian dogs, but he would be with him again today in paradise. Aslan didn't need the radio anymore. It was more of a way of warning him if anything was wrong. The fact that nothing had been sent was a positive thing, and he was trained to assume that not hearing anything meant everything was going ahead as scheduled. Giving the radio to Osman, there was nothing else to say. Osman gave him a copy of the Holy Quran. He kissed it and put it inside his overalls. Aslan carefully put on his white helmet and began his pre-startup checks. He knew it as a stump check. Security, throttle, all clear. Master Mag's prop clear. It was not so much about safety, but doing everything possible to get his flying bomb on target, a once-only opportunity. It would only be in the air for 12 minutes, but it would be the most significant 12 minutes since 9/11's. The rest of his men put on their suicide vests and checked their weapons. A series of gunshots and muffled explosions from the ground floor signaled that it was time for Aslan to go to paradise. The infidels had discovered them. Quickly now, push me to the ledge. Hurry, hurry, he urged his men. Aslan now had the aircraft at full throttle. He untied the wing, took his pack and brake off, set his choke, and ensured the fuel tap was on, master switch on. Then he pressed the ignition and double-checked his harness, not because he was concerned for his safety, but so that he didn't fall out of the cockpit before he hit his target. He didn't have time for the entire flight checks as the gunfire was approaching. Then, finally, the engine screamed at full throttle, and his men pushed him and the aircraft over the edge. Pulling back on the bar, he felt himself drop like a lead weight due to the artillery shell and extra weaponry. Then he started to gain some altitude. Having gone over the route a million times in his head and simulators so far, it was going to plan. He was oblivious to the fighting raging behind him at the car park. A sniper eventually killed the jihadi at the bottom on guard after he killed 3 police officers before he could initiate his lethal suicide vest. The other 8 jihadis eagerly ran down the ramps to face the enemy, sheets of lead tearing into the Turkish police from their AK-74 assault rifles, who quickly retreated to their armored personnel carriers, leaving a further 2 dead and 1 injured. The injured policeman begged for mercy as one of the jihadis screamed, Allahu Akbar. Then he proceeded to decapitate him and throw the severed head in the direction of the police vehicles before the police sniper also neutralized him. Splitting into 2 teams, one team of 4 ran along the street to the right of the car park, machine gunning anything and everyone in their path, men, women, and children. The other team of 3 went to the shopping mall and continued their indiscriminate slaughter of civilians. Aslan had been airborne for 5 minutes. In this time, 57 people had been killed by his men. He pushed down on the control bar to the left and looked down at the same street where he had met his wife at a Moroccan restaurant. Cars, buses, and people went past in a blur. He held the detonator for the artillery shell in his right hand. Looking at his watch, 7 minutes and 12 seconds had gone in the blink of an eye. Turning right now, he was close to his destiny, orientating himself with a mosque near the railway station. He was steady and true, like an arrow through the heart of a crusader dog. Looking down, he saw a small boy with an older man. The boy was holding a red balloon and pointing up at Osman. He smiled and waved at the boy, and the boy waved back. It was surreal, like a dream. Then, noticing a police helicopter above him that seemed to be tracking him, he ignored it. They cannot fire at me as I'm so low down, and there are too many civilians. They cannot stop me. It is the will of Allah pushing the bar to the right. This was the last road, a sharp right turn now along Martyrs Avenue, and he could see the main drag that headed to the embassy, Sarata Sapulu Atato Boulevard. He had been there many times, it was too easy. To be continued. Please like, share, and subscribe. Read AA McNally's book Sons of Eirinn, Operation Celtic Jihad.